Welcome to SomPrana. My name is Dr. Aarti Soorya. I'm an integrative medicine physician.
And I'm Sarah Herr. I'm a somatic practitioner.
So today we wanted to dive into routines and balance. And, both of us are practitioners in the wellness world, and there can be sometimes an overemphasis on routines and balance that ironically can create more stress in the body and defeat the purpose of it. So, Sarah, do you want to start us off and talk about maybe what you've seen clinically, and we can kind of go from there?
Yeah. So part of the wellness world is building routines to make healthy habits. What I've seen a lot, though, in the functional medicine holistic world is some pretty rigid routines that have led to not really attuning to your body. So when we talk about a routine, it's like an anchor point in your day that looks pretty similar, but it can get really easy to fall down the rabbit hole of trying to make your whole day very rigid and routine, where it's like, this is exactly what I do every morning. This is what I do every day for lunch and after work. This is the exact same time I go to bed. And in that rigid routine is what we saw was a lot of dysregulation and people who were struggling with still medical issues, even though they were like, I'm eating perfectly healthy and I'm following this perfect routine, but really they weren't listening to their body at all. They were very disconnected, and this routine kept them in this disconnection from their body because they were able to say, this is what I do, no matter what their body was saying that day. So,
Mm.
for example, I was following someone's blood sugar. I was following this woman's blood sugar, and every day she ate pretty much the same amount of calories, the same balance of almost her meals were almost identical each day with just a few that were swapped out. And she did this for the entire month, eating exactly the same amount of calories, exactly the same amount of carbs at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And what we were finding is she was struggling a lot during her period and she wasn't feeling good. She wasn't sleeping well. And she was dipping. Her blood sugar was dipping in the middle of the night and sometimes during the day. She was having these lows. Well, she was not listening to her hunger cues, that she was extra hungry during her period, but she was ignoring that because she was sticking to her routine.
Mhm.
So this is where routine can kind of pull us out of balance and out of tune with our bodies.
Mhm.
I know too, you've seen similar things, so I'd love to hear more what you have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to that point comes there's this idea that gets planted that you have to be perfect, and that perfectionism comes in. And that perfectionism isn't coming from I'm doing this to nourish myself. It's more like I'm trying to get to an end result. And
Mm.
it's still control in some way. And you're kind of what I think is like being overly rigid to kind of cover up some anxiety or loss of control in your life where the symptoms might have come about. And so it's scary. So we oftentimes think we have to be very, rigid to get our health back. But health is in fluidity, in flow, and in attunement, which you talk a lot about. And so I think, putting that on the radar, because I saw that in myself, like when I was kind of, not sleeping well and all this. So it's like, okay, can't have caffeine past this time. I need to not exercise too late. Otherwise, it's going to keep me stimulated. Or, I have blue light at this time. Shoot, I'm like screwed for my sleep. It would create really, more anxiety, I would say, which is counterproductive rather than being allowed to have that thought process, like it's fluid, just go with it. That really is true, I would say, nervous system regulation, which we're kind of aiming for.
Yes, like that word attunement, which I didn't really describe attunement. Attunement is when we are aware and in connection with our body sensations.
Mm-hmm.
We are able to feel readily our hunger cues, even just going to the bathroom. Is our chest tight? Are we uncomfortable? We are in attunement with how our body is feeling and with its needs and able to respond to those. That's really what attunement is. Attunement is I'm upset and I know what to do with this upset, or I'm not feeling good and I know a few things that might be able to pull me out of this. And these,
So to that point, like I think in our culture, we have such a go, go, go culture that we are not listening. And then the body actually has to scream because the symptom, there was a whisper probably years ago. By the time people come see us, they've been struggling with symptoms for a while. There's probably a whisper, and then it's got to scream a little bit louder, a little bit louder, a little bit louder until, the body's literally like, pay attention to me. I need your attention. And so that's when, learning those cues and can be very, very helpful because then you're avoiding the rigidity of strict routines and regimens.
Yeah, yeah, beautifully said.
Yeah. And
This,
like I think like all of the things we have so many tools that we teach, patients that we work with, but the goal of the tool is not you need to do this rigid like this is going to make your symptom go away. It's
mhm.
really just to build presence and be okay with it.
Yeah, the symptom is not the problem. The
Yeah.
symptom is showing you you're out of alignment.
Yeah. Do you have like some examples like throughout your day, not for rigidity's sake, but just to some like ideas or things that help you kind of create adaptability?
Yeah, so I like to look at them as more of anchor points rather than like this strict routines. And anchor points for me are places where I check in, where I make sure I'm taking care of myself. So, like in the morning before I get out of my bed, I do some slow, deep breathing and just pay attention to how I feel in my body. Now, I usually have to get out of bed pretty quickly after that to get things going, but those few minutes for me are really invaluable. In the past, I thought I'd need like work out in the morning and I had to do deep breathing and my routine had to be huge and it's more flexible now where it's like deep breathing or some days I stretch or if I don't have a chance because we have to get my kids on the bus and maybe we slept in a little bit. When I get up, I have some type of somatic exercise I do for a few minutes, even while I'm getting the kids ready. So my
Hmm.
routines are more flexible now, but I still have those anchor points that when I first get up, I want to have something
Hmm.
that I can anchor in on. And then, within the first hour and a half, I have a good breakfast with protein. So
Hmm.
it's routine, but with that flexibility and it might look different. If I'm not that hungry that day, I'm not going to force myself to have some huge breakfast with all of this fiber and protein. I'm like, I might grab some nuts. And then when I am more hungry later, I will actually eat more of a meal.
Hmm. Yeah, that sounds very in tune.
And it's hard to get there. Sometimes I did need some more of the rigidity at first, which I get because getting those routines and habits in place, sometimes you do need to be, no matter what, I'm going to do this. But it is about still having some flexibility in that. If I don't feel like deep breathing that day, is there something else I can do? Can I just go look out a window? Can I just enjoy myself for a minute? Uh,
Hmm.
Building in some flexibility is healthy, but if your whole day is either completely flexible or completely routined, that's where we get off track, is we need balance. We need some routines, we need some anchor points to come back to, our bodies and regulation and seeing if our needs are being met. And then we also do need some flexibility. If our whole day is like boom, 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 I have this hour scheduled, this hour, this is what I'm doing this time. We're not being in tune with ourselves. We're not saying, okay, I am more tired today and I thought I'd get all of these things done today. I am just going to see what more I have in me. And then the next day, maybe you're more productive that day and you get way more done. And leaning into that is really important.
Hmm. Yeah, I think, and so this, that's a really good point, is that balance doesn't have to look the same every day.
Mhm.
Give yourself flexibility in the sense that, oh, today might be more of a rest day. That's fine. Next day it is like I'll do more, like or have, be outside of the house more, and that's fine. But the next day, let's say you're out later with friends, then come back the next day, okay, I'm gonna stay in. I don't really need to go out again.
Yeah, what does that balance look like for you?
So for me, like, if in the morning time, let's say I'm starting clinic earlier than I normally do, and I don't have time to work out or something, I usually like to get up. I just sit for a bit with some hot water. And if I don't have that time, that's okay. I just concentrate on my breath. like while I'm doing what I'm doing. So, because if I have to get out of the door a little bit quicker, that's all I do. And that still keeps me present and aware and, in the moment so that I'm not feeling so derailed later. But I like to, work out in the morning and then, get my day started, but sometimes read, sometimes if I don't have time, it's okay. Usually in the evening times, I'm either at dance class or hanging out with friends. A big part of the dance culture is like socials. And like for me, those can really derail my rhythm because they tend to be later. But I
Mm.
also don't want to not participate in them, right? Because they are fun. So like, once in a while I'll go and then just not in my mind be like, I'm out way later than I'm supposed to be, and I'm gonna feel awful the next day, and da 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 da. Now because I've practiced that adaptability, I can stay out a bit later. It's okay. It doesn't derail me as much the next day. I just take a little bit of like, a little bit more rest the next day if I need to. It's less catastrophic thinking.
I like that. And I like the balance because it is important. Oh, sorry. It is. I'll let you go.
Um, yeah, it's just less catastrophic thinking, and so I feel more empowered that way, actually. It feels like I'm not at the mercy of these like endless routines that the wellness world will tell you, like green juice in the morning, and then the protein and the fiber and the fat. Like make sure you get everything in, and then dry brush and whatnot. And like, there's so many self-care practices. You cannot do them all. Like it's just like, you do one well, like that, pick one thing that really resonates with you. And you know, you
Yeah.
can learn more things, then you create a toolbox because then you'll be like, oh, this works better for me here. This works better for me when I'm like this.
Yeah. And I used to have that like an all or nothing.
Me too.
Well, if I can't do this most days, then I should never like this habit is just going to have to either come in or go. So even
Yeah.
if you said dry brushing is like a couple times a month, I might do it, and that's okay. But it's not something that I'm like, I have to do this every day. I have to do, or even like I have to do it every other day or every weekend, is that I've built this more flexibility with these self-care practices that it's like, every today this feels good as a self-care. And I know it's doing me good and it's still doing me good even if I'm not doing it every day. I think that's okay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a common theme with the people that we see, the all or nothing. Um, and so that was a really good point to make because I was like that too.
Well, that's why we became friends.
Yeah, exactly. Like attracts like. If you want to learn more about how to create a healthy life, we have courses coming out. We've got free tools and tips that we give in our community. So sign up for that at somprana.com. And we look forward to seeing you there.